Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Shouting from the Sidelines. Delighted to have Glen Thurgood with us today. I'm going to let Glen introduce himself in a second, but we're going to talk today a lot about the benefits of SAQ training, of plyometrics training for children in sport. Glen is an absolute expert in this. He's an author, a coach of a lot of years experience in this area. So really pleased to have him with us today. Glen, rather than me babble on, I thought it'd be good for you to introduce yourself. So yeah, can you tell everybody at home who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks very much for that, mate. It's great to join you as well. And, in these crazy times, this is probably the only way we can connect. But I've obviously seen what you've been up to and what you've been doing since, we spoke, I think it was a couple of years ago when I looked at the email trail. I think you're the other person that keeps hold of emails as long as I do. But, it's what it's about. And it's about connecting good people and doing good things. But yeah, who am I? I'm the same as you, mate. I'm a coach, ex-athlete that didn't quite make it to the Olympics and then kind of thought, right, next best job is let's try and inspire the next lot. So I spent years working in professional rugby, professional football, but predominantly my passion has always been about athletic development and kids, because it's that old adage of if I knew what I knew now when I was an athlete, I reckon I would have been better than what I was. So I was good. I was a good international, but I wasn't, world class. I don't think I've got the genetics for world class, but I think I still could have been better. And if there's one thing that coaches and players always want is just to do something as well as you possibly can. So yeah, I've, been in the industry for very, very many years, over 20 odd years or so. Worked under people like Sven-Goran Eriksson, one of the only UK strength and conditioning coaches to be invited to Real Madrid. So I spent a week over there looking at all their stuff and things. I was in charge of Northampton when they beat Liverpool at Anfield in the Carling Cup, that historic night, a little, not too long ago. But yeah, I've had a normal roller coaster ride in football. I've had a similar experience in rugby under people like Neil Back and Dean Richards and Ben Gollins and all those people. And I've kind of done my chapter of being in performance settings. And about 7 years ago, I started my own business called The Training Shed. And predominantly, we class ourselves as a health and wellbeing company, but really we do a lot of sports performance as well. So we're still involved in lots of elite sports, but more on a one-to-one level where, we complement other coaches and other sports coaches to enhance their athletes to be able to perform at their best. So we work with Formula 3 drivers. We work with, we sponsor the Mustang team and GT, British GT, which is quite cool. There's a Scalextric car coming out this year with our branding on it. It's quite weird, but it's not what I thought I'd end up with this business. But we work with everybody and anybody, and we're on a huge drive right now to try and get everybody, including sports people, to a point where they have really solid health and well-being foundations. Because as you can probably imagine, performance is at the top of a big triangle. Mm-hmm. And the way that we see things is that you've got to get the base foundations right. So we have 21 employed coaches. They're fantastic physios and sports therapists, nutrition, because, having spent 10 years plus as a performance director in professional sports, I've probably got a more professional team now than what I've ever been allowed to have in clubs and other places. So, it's a good thing. It's a crazy time at the moment, as you know. We have just shut 2 of our 4 facilities, but that's a economic thing rather than does it work, in terms of it's just to do with landlords and things. But fundamentally, we've moved to online, which has meant that we can service more people. But fundamentally, our principles of athletic development are there from the age of 8 all the way up to 88. So, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just what's your goal, what's your start point, and what's your desired end point. But yeah, that's us.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And yeah, we were talking just off air about how you a few years ago were obviously my mentor, whatever it may be, with the SAQI diploma, helped me through that. And ever since that time, I've just been wholly convinced of movement, of speed, of power, and so forth, and helping children develop those areas athletically, because I've seen the benefits now firsthand of the children that, our predominant sport is football. We're football coaches, but helping children move better, move faster, be more powerful, more athletic. We've seen the benefits of that with a lot of the players that we've helped on either on a one-to-one basis or within our what we call our speed training sessions on a Tuesday, which the kids really enjoy. So I was saying to Glenn off air, obviously really keen to get you on to talk to parents. This is a podcast for parents in sport about how they can help them, whether it be physical, mental, or whatever. And I think this is a massive area that's untapped. I don't think too many parents, too many coaches focus on it as much as they need to, particularly, which is what we'll probably talk about, the fact that kids aren't moving as much as when you and I were children, and certainly not in as many different ways as you and I were, climbing trees and everything else. So yeah, I really, really appreciate you coming on, Glenn. And that was the first question for you, really. You've worked at the highest levels. You've worked in professional sport, elite sport. How important in today's game, whether that be football, rugby, or anything else, how important is speed and power and so forth?
I think it's the only thing. I think, inherently in football, and I've been there firsthand and witnessed it, and I'm not going to name any clubs during any of this, because I think it will show up some of the poor practices that we still believe in today. But, size has always been that thing. I myself, I ended up being an athlete, but I was actually a footballer first, and I used to play with Richard Wright and Kieran Dyer. County level, had a couple of YTSs offered to me with clubs, and I didn't choose it because I got picked up, I think, predominantly because of my size, because I've always been 6 foot plus since I was about 14. And I did some good things in the games, and they picked me out. But in athletics, I knew I was number one because I did this and it was that, and it's the difference between that whole subjective and objective. And I think, unfortunately, in football, and it is getting better, and it has moved on since I've left the industry, or that part of this industry, 7-8 years ago, or football 10 years ago. But it's still not taken as seriously as the other bit. And as you know, you've got that 4-corner model, which is tactical, technical, physiological, and psychological. Well, it's a square, that thing, and each box in representation is the same size. And unfortunately, due to budgets or the willingness to understand what's there, or to give it enough longevity to see the results from the good work that people do on that bottom part, because tactical and technical sit at the top, unfortunately we don't put enough emphasis on that stuff. And I think with kids these days, and certainly when I was in the academy setups and trying to drag things forward, and I worked with some really good people like Richard Anderson, who's he's almost took the Cook Islands to the World Cup. He's had to go all the way over there to get a job, but he's actually a master's level psychologist. And then there's another guy who was a physiotherapist called Sam Spencer, who was phenomenal. Well, he now, makes houses and sells houses. And the problem is that a club wasn't willing to invest in the academy setup in the same way that it was willing to invest in the first team players. So what you then end up with is a shortfall of knowledge and education. And so the kids that are coming through that you might have contact with twice a week, a couple of hours for an academy session or something in the evening, but performance is so much more than kicking a ball or heading a ball or being able to pass a ball, or it's an athletic sport. And we need to, whether it's football or any other sport, we need to get to this point where we develop athletes first and specialists second. And I think, with the great work that you're now doing, and, not just saying it because you've kindly invited me on here, but yours is one of the best projects that I've ever marked, because you understand your sport. And that's first and foremost, you need to understand what you're training for. But then you took some new stuff and you went, do you know what? I can see how this is going to make my players better. And you've implemented it, like you say, and you've been doing a session of SAQ and plyometrics a week and stuff like that. And, that's huge. That is massive. And, for some clubs, maybe in the lower leagues, they probably don't train as well or as competently as what you're probably doing with your football academy guys as well. So, hats off to you. And it's coaches like you that will help to, you've probably got more chance of somebody coming through your system into a professional setting, because athletically you will always stand out on a pitch. You tend to, as you're older, if you're 6 foot tall, you tend to get spotted. and I did at one club, we did this thing that kind of morphed. I always go and find good things, and I try and kind of bring them into a setting that's going to help and enhance things. And we did this thing called a decathlon, not high jump and sprinting and stuff like that, but it was a plyometric jumps decathlon, and very competitive. And it's things like, right, do 2 foot jumps 3 times and see how far you can land. And you measure it, and then how far it worked. I nicked it from, I think it was a Great Britain throws coach that I knew. And you always nick the best ideas, don't you? And essentially, we did this thing with the kids in this professional academy, and the kids that came top didn't get a pro contract.
Really?
But the bottom 6, and I'm not making this up, all got a pro contract. And do you know what their distinguishing feature was?
Go on.
They're all over 6 foot. And I was just like, and there were some amazing players in that top half, and funnily enough, some of the bottom kids have now sort of kind of left football, but a couple of them did actually play, and they developed later on.
Yeah.
But some of the kids in that top 6 are still playing today, and actually are now starting to come up the leagues with some of the lower league clubs, and are sort of teetering back on the edge of becoming a professional. But they've kind of been spat out the system and brought back again, because the emphasis on athleticism, it's not there because of the support or the infrastructure that we don't put into clubs or settings. And it's not, I don't think it's it is a responsibility of parents. As a parent myself, I can see it, but you only know what you know, and you need to surround yourself or take your kids to good places like yourself, where people actually understand what's the best for that child's sort of development in that sport, or just athleticism in general.
It's crazy. I think we did some I guess coach education trips, you'd call it. So we went over to Benfica a couple of years ago, and my coaches get bored of me saying Benfica, because it was like a dream come true for me. It was like a kid at Christmas there. But it was really interesting to see that we went to one of their under 10 sessions, and they had, across the field, they had 2 coaches taking kids out 5 at a time, 6 at a time, doing SAQ. It was basic ladders, basic hurdles, a little bit of bounding work and things like that. And they were saying to us, look, in Portugal, we have the same problems as you guys in England. Kids are not moving as much. They're on screens more and so forth. So we need to do that to make sure that athletically, regardless of size, they're going to be able to move. I want them to move. They're going to be able to move at pace and so forth. Contrast that with another one we went on with. We got invited over to Manchester City, and we were talking to their head of recruitment and the academy about what we're doing with the SAQ stuff. And he was really pleased about that. He's a big believer in it. He said that they don't do it nearly as much, if at all. In his opinion, they should be doing it, because he's seen firsthand the benefits of it. So you're talking about size. That's been a frustration of ours, certainly. Since well, I was always a small footballer. I wouldn't have made it anyway, Glenn, don't get me wrong. But the fact that you had these guys that were just bigger, you knew full well that. And even now with kids, we know some of the kids that are getting picked up, they're just getting picked up because of their size. I think we need to give advantages to those kids that aren't the tallest, but can we make them a bit quicker? Can we make them jump a bit higher? Those sorts of things, just to throw their balance.
Well, who's your favourite player?
Ever?
Yeah.
Paul Scholes.
Okay, how tall's he?
Yeah. Probably 5'6", 5'7", something like that.
Now name me some of the best players in the world, currently and in the past. I think you know what he's doing.
Messi, Xavi, Iniesta.
Maradona, yeah. Exactly. How big are they?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like the proof isn't there. And don't get me wrong, Peter Crouch, unbelievable mover for the size of him. He's athletic, and I'm not denouncing that any football that's over 6 foot is not good. But what I am trying to say is that rugby union, and having worked in rugby union professionally as well in the academies, rugby union was always deemed as a sport for, let's be honest, the kids that couldn't play football. And it was a game. It was coined as a game for all sizes. So if you were a bigger kid, then you'd be in the forwards, and if you were a fast, athletic kid, you'd be in the backs. Probably one of the funniest things I've ever done is played football with a bunch of professional rugby players. It's like watching hippos, kick a beach ball. It's but they play athletically, but they're just massive and they don't move in the same way, but they can still move. And athletically, rugby players have to develop the ability to evade players and move out the way of players, because otherwise you just get absolutely crunched. And, so it's a different kind of emphasis. But in rugby, the difference in rugby and football is that they spend a lot of time developing that movement, developing the ability to step, developing the ability to, evade. And SAQ is a huge thing. And, SAQ is actually partly the reason why we won the 2003 World Cup for rugby. Now, I've actually had the fortunate ability to work with an under Neil Back, who was in that squad. And when I do my SAQ presentations, he's in the videos from SAQ. So, it's just, you can see it. All the evidence is there. What we need is we just need the ability to disseminate that knowledge and get that education out there, which that's essentially what I am as an educator, so that you can, send your kids off when they're not with you, so that when they're at home, instead of sitting down playing on the PlayStation, they are, sat there, they think, right, I'm going to go in the garden and do 5 minutes of ladders or hurdles or stuff like that. Because, it's, the thing is deliberate practice is what makes you better. So not longer practice. So, and as with kids, they've only got so much attention span. You've got to keep it interesting. So what we're not trying to say is you've got to train longer or train more. What you've got to do is you've got to train better. And I think the reason that people can't train better is, some of your kids, how long do they come to you for? A couple of sessions a week, maybe?
Well, yeah, 1 to 2 sessions normally.
Yeah, and how long's a session like?
They're an hour long.
Yeah, so that's 4% of each of those days, and we expect those kids to be amazing at what they do. And so it's being able to then, you can't be with those kids as much as I can imagine you're the same as me. You want to be able to affect these kids to the best of their ability. And, I'm not advocating the Chinese or the Russians, but, when they used to set up their athletic Olympic pathways and the kids would disappear off when they're like 8 years old and they go through an academy process and they live away from home, the reason that all those kids, probably as well as the other stuff that they got banned for, but fundamentally, their whole practice and their way that they put effort and they put emphasis on this stuff is about developing athletes. And I think, what we have to do is we have to come up with some really good, simple ways, and especially now with the power of the internet and things like this, Zoom and stuff, I think we should be able to educate parents and players, because players, I'm sure you've heard the term individual athlete responsibility. They need to take what they learn when they come to you, just like school, and then take that home with them. Yeah. You've got to do it all the time, but if they, I guarantee you that if you did 6 weeks worth of home practice for 10 minutes, maybe 3 times a week, just on the mechanics, just doing simple hurdles, single leg deadlift, lateral, and like real basic simple mechanics, stage 1 of SAQ program, you'd see a huge difference. Yeah. And we're not advocating, we're not trying to drive kids into the ground and, stand there shouting and screaming at them, because again, that's not a positive environment to develop anything, let alone athletes.
There's some great points there, Glenn, because one of the things I wanted to ask you today was any tips for parents and children listening to what they can do at home, and you've just said we'll touch back on that. Just thought I'd better say, parents, children, anyone that's watching, SAQ stands for speed, agility, quickness. So apologies, we keep saying SAQ if you don't know what it means, but yeah, essentially speed, agility, quickness. But I think you touched on the point about the pandemic and what that might have taught us as coaches, as players, and so forth. I think that it's shown that you can practice at home. I think a lot of the time that for me is the magic part. If you want to get better at something, it's not just coming to us for an hour a week or whatever. It's what are you going to do at home, and just work on those 10, 20-minute sessions at home. You can get your ladders out, you can get your hurdles, you can even do it with cones or pillows. It doesn't matter, but you can do something every single day for 10 to 15, 20 minutes that is going to benefit your movement. There's an interesting book I've been reading, which basically firms up my viewpoints on this. Around, it was in Holland. There's some. It's called ASM, Athletic Skills Model, I'll send you afterwards. It's worth a read. So it's developed by these guys in Holland they're at Ajax. They've worked with the Dutch FA, and I mean ultimately it's about how, like you've said, develop an athlete first, athletics first, get them moving properly, and then bring the technique stuff in with the football second. Because football, rugby, whatever, the actual techniques of it can be taught fairly quickly with purposeful practice. Athletics, that's harder, especially in these days when children are moving less. And it was really interesting. I'm only halfway through it at the minute, but it's been really interesting to read it and just it sort of again just affirmed my points from working with you guys a couple of years ago on the I diploma. That's it. If you can develop an athlete first, I mean, how many footballers, how many rugby players could we name that they've got where they are because they're fast? And
it's as simple as this, isn't it? It's always half a yard we always hear about. That's what you need, half a yard. I mean, we're talking nanoseconds, and also doesn't matter how good. So I'm not saying that I could beat him to a ball now, but Messi, his acceleration is phenomenal, and if someone else can get there before him, he's got no ball.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Always get to the ball first, or get into space first. And football is a game of intermittent speed. It's an interval game of high and low kind of sort of acceleration and velocity, and the ability to change direction. All those things that SAQ advocates and helps to train. And I think SAQ as a program. I mean, when I was a kid, I did all this stuff, but it just wasn't known as SAQ. And interestingly, Alan Pearson, the founder of SAQ, is phenomenal, and he's worked with everybody, as you can probably imagine, up to Cristiano Ronaldo and over at Madrid and things. And he's a fantastic guy. He's like 7 foot plus tall. He's man mountain, but he moves. And he could move well in his day. And he was a boxer, and he's a big advocate of multiple sports. And I'm sure we're going to touch on that as well. But fundamentally, SAQ started as a Nike project, but because there wasn't enough money in it, they dropped it. But Alan Pearson sat round a table in Oregon with Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras, Michael Jordan, etc., etc., etc. And unfortunately, Nike decided, as with most things these days, money comes into it. But he brought it back to the UK, did what he did with it, and SAQ's been around for a very long time. It's kind of not getting the justification that it needs now, because you get all of these other people that are coming along, and everybody wants to prove their point and do whatever. But at the end of the day, the body hasn't changed for God knows how many thousands of years, and it's not going to change for the next few thousand years. So the body moves the way that the body moves. The results that I've got with SAQ, I mean, I went into one professional football club, and they had a horrendous injury list, and just by using SAQ in our pre-season campaign, as well as lots of other things, so it's has to be part of a jigsaw. So we were doing ice baths and contrast baths and stretching and mobility and strength work, which they'd not really done properly before. But just SAQ alone reduced our injury, contributed to the injury rate reducing by 76%.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous, because if you put that into financial terms, it's huge. Yeah. But then when I went to the chairman and went, right, can I have some more staff? This is what we've saved. This is the medical bill. Unfortunately, we had one little incident where a player in pre-season went up for a ball just on the edge of the area and went to volley. Amazing shot. Went to volley this ball. Leg went. Cost us 50 odd grand in medical bill, and everything. All the good work I'd done just disappeared overnight. And I was like, oh, never mind. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. But if they put that into the foundation of every program that they do in the professional academies, which they are doing now, it is getting better. But you've got to, before you get to that academy level, and you can go in and out of that academy because you can get released and you can go back, and you've got the exit trials and all these sorts of things these days. And, if I tell you that you don't stop growing, so physiologically developing until you're 22, you should never give up. And if you train, and you train and you train and you train and you reaffirm those good athletic habits and movement patterns, which, I'm sure you've heard of PHV, or peak height velocity, when you go through that puberty bit and you grow and you have that kid that you go, oh God, he was amazing last year. He's all over the shop this year. Or she hasn't done this, and boys and girls develop at different speeds. But normally around about 12 to 14 years of age, that's when you get those big growth spurts. That's when I shot up to 6 foot, 6'1", and by reaffirming movement patterns during that period of time, that will make you a lot better athlete when you get into your 15s and 16s and you start to, especially with boys with testosterone and stuff and all those sorts of things, you start to develop muscle, because you can't be fast without being strong. Because to exert power, as you know, probably if you remember some of the stuff in there, you've got to be strong before you can exert any kind of force or velocity. So power is force times velocity, so the speed of movement of what you move. And then there's no point being strong if you can't move. If you can't exert that force in the right way biomechanically or from a coordination point of view, well, you're probably not going to get there in the same way as somebody that is athletic and has got that ability to move properly and fluidly as an athletic machine, rather than just some big brute that's got a lot of muscle on them. So it's all combined. And so if you think about the ages, if you get a massive foundation, a really good foundation of coordination, and you should never stop that, because as you get older, especially up to my age in the 40s and stuff, you then start to you need to do mobility work. So that is kind of classed as mobility and coordination work. And I think even all the way up to when you're 80, this is the sort of stuff that people should be doing. Maybe not the same intensity and the same level, but to be able to move well and move free of pain, and to be able to be balanced in your movement, so to be equally as good on your left as you are on your right, because otherwise it's an imbalance, and when there's an imbalance there's a weakness, and when there's a weakness there's a higher propensity to injury. So you should always train both sides, you should always train every movement, so forwards and back, lateral, diagonal, all of those sorts of things. Stopping and starting, they're two skills that are very rarely kind of trained. But that's the element of football. If you stick a ball in front of a defender, I need to be able to react and get around the back, as they say. And my starting position, where am I starting from? Am I able to turn and run? Am I starting from the floor? Am I starting from my weak leg? Because we've all got a favourite leg, which is wrong.
100%.
Shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way. But it is, and it always will be. But the more balanced you can become, the more athletic ability you will have. And it's that gives you the ability to then, as you grow, develop, as an athlete from a physical point of view, to then be able to exert speed and power. Because when you're 9, you can be fast, but it's not because you're full of muscle that you're exerting force on. It's because you've got good coordination normally. And they're the kids that you look at and you go, oh my God, that's a good footballer. She's fast. He's fast. Yeah. My niece is 10. She's nearly 6 foot tall, and she can move. And she is athletic. So I use some of my videos. I should have found it really. But when she was 2, I have videos of her doing, it's going to sound really bad now, but doing SAQ mechanics in her UGG boots on my patio. So she's got both attributes. So she's not only got the physical ability, but she can move with it as well. And fundamentally, she plays in a boys' football team.
Well, that's a whole other story. We've interviewed a couple of female athletes, both professional rugby and professional football, that advocate playing with and against boys at a young age to help them. But that's another story. But the points around it. You mentioned the word mechanics, and mechanics, for those that are listening, is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, but basically how to move properly, how the mechanics of running, the mechanics of sprinting, jumping, and so forth. And like Glenn says, if you can nail these things at a young age, and particularly during the growth spurt phases, it gives you a massive advantage. But during your growth spurt phases, it helps you deal with that quicker, I guess, than you would do if you just carried on your standard training and hoping that you get the growth spurt done and then I'll get back to normal. So there's a lot of great points there for parents and children, and I think some of the things that parents could do at home, or children could do at home, goes back to what you were saying before around get outside with some ladders, hurdles, and so forth, and just do some basic stuff. There's enough online now. We've just released a training website which is very football specific, but we specifically put in there an SAQ section, which is all everything, running, jumping, hopping, whatever it might be. Because we know that if we can just get more kids doing this at home as well as at the sessions, I think it'd just be brilliant overall for everybody in sport.
Yeah. And I think, let's be honest, where we are right now with lockdown and things like that, and I know we're coming out of it a little bit, but everybody's tending to find themselves at home with their kids. Like I say, I've got a 4-year-old, which has been interesting, but he and to be honest, even when he was 2, he was doing SAQ. Well, he's probably about 1.5. He was doing SAQ, and I literally had some of the coloured dots on the floor, and I just got him to jump. I don't know where this has come from, and I know you can see that picture there, and that's what I used to do. But as you can probably imagine, especially with my in-laws as well, and because of the job that I do, I've been almost anti sort of kind of encouraging to do this. If he comes to me and says, "Daddy, let's go and do this and let's go and do that," then absolutely I go and do it. But not at any point do I say, right, Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing that, Wednesday we're doing that. And you may have seen it, but there's a show on Netflix at the moment called The Floor is Lava.
No.
Check it out. It's hilarious. You'll probably get through one episode and say, I can't watch this forever, because it's kind of a same American format, and it's very well overacted. But essentially, it's and you probably remember this from school. It's an assault course. Yeah. And so he loved the show, and he was just like, Daddy, let's play The Floor is Lava. So what did I do? I went and got out my SAQ stuff. I put it into the garden. I got his slide, and I found a surfboard in the garage that we used, and he got his scooter, and we basically played The Floor is Lava.
Brilliant.
So he's doing all this athletic development stuff, but he doesn't realise what he's doing. But at the same time, with my brain, I'm going, right, so I want to jump in there, and I want this in there, and I want him to draw there. So it's the old school kind of like, I remember doing it at school, the old school PE sessions where the climbing frames would come out, and they basically, I think it's when the PE teachers used to get bored.
Yeah.
They couldn't be bothered to go outside, and they'd go, do this. And for all the sports that I've ever done and enjoyed doing, they're the sessions that I actually remember from school.
Yeah, zero health and safety, but we loved it.
I was carrying a wooden bench over the top of the bars and all sorts of stuff.
You make that point, and that's something that I wrote down. The assault courses, and this is the thing for parents, particularly with younger children, maybe like you say 4 to 6, 4 to 7, 8, whatever, making these little assault courses at home in the garden. You might just think it's a bit of fun, but they're moving in so many different ways. Yeah, you and I would look at it and say, well, can you stay on the balls of your feet? Can you keep your knees lower and blah, blah, blah. But, don't just let them go and play, because they don't realise that the benefits that's having from a movement potential. And then as they get older, you can start incorporating that into some of my one-to-ones. I might do a mini SAQ assault course that leads to a shot on goal and things like that. So you just start incorporating the ball and things they enjoy doing, like scoring goals. And we're promoting it more with our coaches because of lockdown. Also because of the restrictions at the minute with the no contact in the football training and stuff. It's been great to see them use more of the SAQ stuff at the sessions, and the kids love it because they're making these little courses to jump over and things like that, and they love it. And nothing at school beat having a race with your mate. Yeah. And if you throw in a couple of hurdles and stuff to jump over, and it was like, brilliant, give us that, and then just add the footballs in as you get, if you're looking at football training. So yeah, that's a big takeaway for parents. Just TIG games and stuff like that, just fantastic things to do.
It's always got to be fun, and again, not to sort of make it about my son, but that's my experience at the moment. But he's 4 and he is obsessed with jumping, obsessed, and I don't know why, and because I have not pushed it. So me being me, started doing some jumping with him, and I posted some stuff on our social media, and I got him to do a long jump and over the hurdle, over the ladder. So it's one of the standard SAQ small ladders, and he cleared the whole blooming thing. And I went, oh my God, and obviously I videoed it, of course I did, and I slowed it down, and I looked at his technique, and I went, oh my God, he's a natural. So we then started doing jumps, and just playing around and stuff. And then I started getting him to do jumping and landing mechanics, just 2-foot stuff, simple things. And he pulled out this humongous jump, and I went, there's got to be a world record for this somewhere. So I got on the internet. You tell I'm bored. I've been in lockdown, but I haven't really been bored. So I found the world record for the under fives, which is like 1 meter 63 or something. And I did a little bit more research. And the person that holds that world record now plays up front for Borussia Dortmund. It's a Norwegian guy.
Wow.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head now.
Haaland. Is it Haaland?
I think, yeah, that's it. Haaland, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and he holds that record. So my son's 4. He's got another year. I said I wasn't pushing him, but we can have a go. but he's just addicted to it. But it also shows you that athletically, Haaland is fast. Why is he fast? Because he's got good mechanics. Why has he got good mechanics? Because he's been training good mechanics probably all of his life. And he started off, and I don't know the journey because that he doesn't hold the records the years after, and maybe he went down a different route or whatever. But somebody somewhere, probably his parents, were encouraging him to do jumps. Maybe they came from athletics. Maybe they were like us. Maybe they were sports people that coach.
His dad was a footballer, Glenn. His dad played for Leeds.
Well, there you go. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Sorry, I'm an Ipswich fan. That's about as much history as I can do in football. We won't talk about that today, though. But so essentially, you can see there that somebody's encouraged him to do something. But what that says is, it says, look, if you are good at this skill, it can help you with speed, which I know. And obviously, this guy kind of proves the point. But if any kid can learn how to jump and land, I think that is probably one of the most fundamental skills that kids should concentrate on. Back in our day, we used to do hopscotch and things in the playground, or jump over ropes or whatever. British bulldogs and all these things that have probably been banned these days. But fundamentally, they are good athletic development games. And probably one of the best games that I've ever used in training is the Asian sport kabaddi.
Yes.
And I love it. And it is so good. It doesn't matter what age you play it with. And obviously you can adapt the rules, because it's very hard to say kabaddi when you're 5 years old, laughing your head off. But even with senior professional, rugby players, they love it, because it's fun, it's competitive. There's always something that goes wrong, but it's so athletic, because it's that evade, that turn in, the stopping, the starting. And that's really all we ever try and do, is make sure that you have good fundamental skills, because if I'm coordinated in my own body, then I can do what I need to do with a ball.
Kabaddi, for anybody listening, in its simplest form, is me versus Glenn, and I'm trying to I'm not going to say slap, I'm trying to touch Glenn's, is it your legs, Glenn, your lower leg?
Yeah, you just got to touch the person. So you come into, so 2 halves of a pitch, so small pitch, probably, I think we normally play about 10 by 10 each square. And then you have a halfway line, and then there's normally about 5 of you in each team, but you can go down to 3 or 2, doesn't really matter. And so you come into me to attack, and whilst you do that, you have to say the word kabaddi. So you could change the name, you could make it easier, whatever, but it's quite an easy thing to say. So you run into the attacking half going kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. So you're trying to, and you can't breathe, by the way. So as soon as you feel like you're running out, you've got to get back. So that teaches you some good sort of mental discipline as well, and breathing control. But when you come in, you've got to tag me or somebody on my sort of team of 5. And by the way, we all have to be holding hands, which is quite funny, because then we all have to communicate to each other to move round. Our job is to not let you get back over the line, but your job is to tag us and get back over the line. And it's as simple as that. And it is the most fun game I think I've ever used. And I've used it at every single club I've ever gone to. Had a few funny looks to start with, but within 5 minutes, people are like, oh, and actually, when I've worked in professional clubs and we've all been hooked up to, polars and catapults and all that sort of stuff, the work rate goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Through the roof. So it's a good conditioning session as well.
It's a lot of fun. We use it at speed training, but we also use it sometimes at football on a 1v1 basis. And the idea is that they have to tap each other's shin pads. And so we use it to show them the technique for jockeying a defender. It's very silly, getting down like that. And but they just absolutely love it. And then you can incorporate the ball, so they've got to protect the ball at the same time and stuff. And it's such a fun game. But going back to stuff like bulldogs, I mean, I think it's banned in most schools. We do it on a Tuesday at our speed training because it's a brilliant game. We just tell the kids not to go crazy, don't be pushing. It's a tag. We play dodgeball as well.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And another one that is, I mean, they love it. It's hilarious. So speed training, we don't have any footballs there. This is a specific SAQ session. So we don't have a match at the end, but a lot of the kids come because they're so used to us playing football. It's like we have to give them something at the end that's similar to a match, and dodgeball just ticks every single box from what we want out of it, but also for their enjoyment. So yeah, stuff like that is great. And it leads us on to, I've been doing this podcast now for it's probably about 6 weeks or so. Speaking to coaches, speaking to athletes, and one common thing that crops up is multi-sport, and how the first episode was with a guy called Liam Harrison, world champion Thai boxer, and he was a footballer predominantly in his early years, didn't start Thai boxing until his early teens, and then he's been reverses to that as well. Going back to that book I told you about with the Dutch guys, you know, they spoke about wanting children to experience more sports at a young age and then specialise later in football. Have football as one of the sports they're doing, but they've seen that the kids that end up, and I looked at Olympic athletes as well, the children that ended up specialising later, probably high school and above, they actually went on to win more medals at the Olympics. And there's a little thing with football as well about how those that specialise a bit later on, it helped them progress further on. You look at Rooney boxing, Zlatan Ibrahimovic was very much into his martial arts. I think Joe Hart was cricket. There's a load of different examples. I think we've probably answered this question, but how important is it? Looking at SAQ stuff and different movement potential, if kids can't get to an SAQ session, don't want to do it at home, is the answer maybe multi-sport? Help, maybe take up another sport through the week to help?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. One caveat I would put to that, though, is the amount of stuff that kids do. And I think, obviously, it's probably outdated comments now because I don't really know what we're all doing at the moment because different counties are in different places. But pre-COVID, and for probably a good 4 or 5 years, of that pre-COVID period, one of the biggest concerns that I always had was that kids did too much. So, I remember being at school and, I played for the school team, I played for a Sunday team, and we're talking football here now, this is pre-athletics. I played for the district team, I played for the county team, I played for a representative team. Well, there was no training. It's all competitive. It's all play. And also, at a young age, I was basically it was that whole needle in a haystack approach to, oh, he's good, let's take him, he's good, let's take him. There was no kind of rest and recovery. There was no kind of, kids get burnt out. And that's one of the biggest problems is if you go multi-sport crazy and, your parents are having to take you to swimming at 5 o'clock in the morning and then you go into cricket in the afternoon or then you've got football on Wednesday, you've got to be careful that you don't burn your kids out. Also for parents, and I get this, and I'm not quite there yet with a 4-year-old, but, one of the things that I don't really want to be doing is, I remember my mum was amazing and, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been as good as I was because she took me everywhere. But he took me everywhere. So, it's crazy. And, I used to train 2 hours away when I got into athletics in Haringey and in Kings Lynn. I lived on the east coast of England. And, that's quite a big ask, not just for the kid, but also for the parent as well. So balance, I think, is one of the things that we've kind of lost track of in this pursuit of excellence. And I think what you need to do is absolutely you need to engage in other sports. I think you need to make it fun. I think you need to make it a positive environment. So you should never be talking about winning with kids. I don't think you should be talking about performance. And if you can concentrate on performance, and this will probably be written on my gravestone when I die, but control the controllables. The only thing that you can control is your own performance and your own ability. And that relates to, in training, your attitude, the way that you prepare for things, the way that you get involved in things. It's your choice what you do and how you do it. Just turning up is not going to make you a champion. And normally we always talk about the top 2% in football, don't we? And, has he got it? Has he not got it? Or can she do this? Or can she do that? It's down to the athlete, and it's the environment that you subject them to. So if you take them to a club and it's all about winning, my strongest opinion on that is wrong.
Yeah.
And so, if you if you're in a good place, it's all positive, and it's all about encouragement, and we have to encourage kids, because I think kids, well, all of us these days are up for quick wins. It's an instant world, isn't it? You click on the screen and there's your new favorite TV program. I remember we had 5 channels you had to get up to turn the telly over. It's so much easier now, and I think it does then transfer into sports. And I think kids get bored sometimes. I think kids, you do what you do, and I think, like I said, I think this is probably an outdated comment, but nobody really knows what they're doing at the moment. But to always take them to football on a Tuesday because that's what you've always done, if it doesn't seem like the kid's having a good time, then maybe you should introduce something else, or substitute it or whatever, because athletically you are developing all the way through your younger years. And the pressure, my family, my cousins' kids and stuff, they've all been at very, very high-end academies, but none of them play football anymore. And it's, and we're talking Premiership academies, and it's just, it unfortunately is, there are only so many places available to play football.
Yep.
And you must not concentrate on the end goal, because just wanting it and just saying, oh, well, I come up and I turn up to practice and I'm going to do this, and he plays in this, and he's, she's got these boots and he does that and whatever. If the kids aren't happy in what they're doing, and you can't see any positive outcomes from when you take them to training or matches, or if they're coming back, and they're upset and stuff like that, then you've got to really question why you're taking them and why you're doing what you're doing. And I think if we can concentrate just on the environment for 1 minute, a positive coach which actively encourages development is much better than a winning coach that literally walks away with the league every year. And that's not a progressive, kind of forward developing environment for any kid to be in.
Definitely, I could not agree more. If you're spanking teams 16-0 every week, you're not getting anything from that. You're much better off losing and learning from that loss, learning from those failures. But the control the controllables, Glenn, that's probably going to be the snippet that I use for this podcast when we get it out, because it's so true. And especially at a young age, it's hard for children, and parents need to help with this. It's hard for them to understand that winning all the time isn't the answer. It's great, but it isn't the answer. The thing is, how well have you played? Or not even that. How much have you tried? Look at your performance. What did you do well? What could you have done better? And at every single training session and every single match, or whatever you play, whatever sport you play, just look at that and say, okay, yeah, I could have done that better. Don't worry about everybody else. Don't worry about the score. What can I do better? Once you get to the pro elite level, then yeah, that's when it starts mattering. When you're getting paid $100,000 a week to win, that's when things kick up a little bit.
Well, then it becomes a job, and so contractually you need to play well because somebody's giving you something in return. When you're a kid, it's brilliant because it doesn't matter if you play badly, because there's nothing at stake other than maybe a little bit of pride and a little bit of ribbon at school on a Monday if you've been spanked 16-0 or something. But fundamentally, when it changes, and this is, I think, where we don't get this right still, is when somebody starts paying you to do something. And I maybe I could have been a footballer, but I chose athletics purely, I think it's just my coach brain. I think even when I was 16, I had an England schoolboy trial and I was ranked number 1 in the UK for high jump. It's like, what do I choose? What do I choose? Well, I know I'm the best at this. No one can take that away from me. And this is people's opinions. And I don't know if I'm good enough to make it. And that was the problem, is I wasn't in an environment that was positive enough to make me believe that I could have made it in football. And, I think that is really the responsibility of coaches and parents. And I think parents at the end of the day, they have a massive job on their hands, because we work longer than ever. We have got more outgoings, I think, than ever before, and I think we all want more as well. But then you got your kids there and stuff, and you want your kids to do as well as they can. But we just need to keep everything as positive as we possibly can, and not be frightened to make a different decision and say, do you know what? I don't think little Johnny's doing very well over here, or little Sarah's doing very well. How are they developing as a person from an attitude point of view? Because I think attitude is probably the number one defining factor of actually becoming professional. Yeah. I've seen a lot of players and, a lot of people out there, even people like, Jimmy Bullard would say, he wasn't the best player. He just tried the hardest.
Yeah.
He's got, and if you could take his attitude and take that and put that into some of the other professional players that maybe didn't quite live up to their expectations, I'm not going to name any names, but we know some of those definitely where you think, hang on a minute, you're getting paid whatever you're getting paid, and the money thing is not a correlation of how good you are in some aspects of the game. And I think you get paid because it's a commercial contract and you've got a great agent and you've got what you've got. But I think some of the best players, and I think this is in proof, is how did we take, and there's the shirt behind you, Northampton Town to Liverpool at Anfield and beat them. League Two versus Premiership, win. Before that, Reading. Before that, Brighton. We literally played everybody from League One, Championship, Premiership, and we won. Why did we win? Because we were perfectly prepared. The players were all on the same page. Everybody was happy. Everybody was making positive steps forward in their development athletically. They were doing training that they'd never done before. And some of these guys have now gone on to be in charge at like the England FA academy stuff as well, which is great to see, because I know that these players have got the right attitudes, and we've got some really good people like Craig Hinton and Steve Guinan and that are in the FA that they know their stuff. They were decent players, and to do what we did with that group of players, if you took and again I'll liken it to athletics and possibly even rugby, but if you took a Premiership player in rugby against a Tier 4 player, not in a million years would that team beat this team.
Right.
So the gap between Premiership and League Two from a skill base, I don't think is as wide as what some people might first think it is, because there are players in non-league clubs that are fantastic footballers. And if you look at the players that have come through into Premiership that have made their way, like James, like Vardy and people like that, phenomenal athletes, phenomenal speed, and this is the thing, athletic. And you get these, Giggs was a non-league player before he ended up where he was, and it's just like, and he didn't go through the ranks in the same way as what everybody would expect him to, and what we're led to believe is the right way to go about it. But they are phenomenal athletes. They move well. They've got great acceleration. And if you've got that, eventually somebody will spot that.
Yeah, and that's the, again, looking at the academy system, I think a lot of parents believe that they need to be in academies at 6 years old to have any sort of, and there's this whole thing about, and I've heard it before, well, if they're not in academies early doors, then they get into bad habits. That's just nonsense. You're talking about a sport, whether it be, let's look at football. You're talking about a multi-billion-pound industry. If a child doesn't go into an academy at 6 years old, but then at 14, 15 is looking like the next Messi, he's going to get, or she's going to get picked up because they're petrified of the other club taking them. So don't speak about all that nonsense. And this is the thing, I think parents are blinded sometimes by it all, by some of the stuff that's probably said in academies to them, which shouldn't be said. And that is Jamie Vardy is case in point. He's just got 100 Premier League goals, and he wasn't even in the Premier League as what was it, early 20s he went in there, if that, maybe mid-20s. Exactly. And his acceleration, his speed, his movement are all things. And yeah, he can play the game. But this is the thing, and you get when going back to what you're saying before about allowing them to play different things and not just have football or just rugby or just gymnastics or whatever every single day of the week. You risk burnout, you risk lack of enjoyment. If I've had a bad training session when I was a kid, if I'd played badly for a couple of days, training and matches, to then have to go to football on that fourth or fifth day, knowing that I've not had a great week, that was awful. But if I'd have had something else to go to that was a bit more play orientated, like, I'm just going to go play tennis or basketball or whatever, where I'm not competitive, I'm not that great at it, but I'm just going to go and play, and it just takes my mind off it. That would have helped me more than just go into another football session.
Yeah, mentally it can be draining. And, like I said, that four-corner model that we talked about at the beginning, the psychology side of it, is just as important as the physiological side of it. And the tactical, technical, all of these things should be intertwined. It's not, that's that bit, that's that bit, that's that bit, that's that bit. And the good academies out there, and there are plenty of them, do get that right, and they have the right number of staff. The problem is the lower down the leagues you go, the less money they have, because it's a business, to be able to invest in that stuff. But I think that's that's actually a kind of an opportunity for people like yourselves and us as well, in that there are very, very good coaches out there that can help to set the standard and the foundation, that we develop these kids to a certain level, and at the right time, and there is obviously a right time for every individual player, and it's not always the same time, for that person to then step up into that elite level, professional academy. Because again, in your environment, it'll be fun, it'll be great, everybody will know who everybody is, there's no pressure, you're developing athletes, and you've got to get that transition, because as soon as you go into an academy, it changes, and there is pressure, and there is things, and we need to be able to get that transition period of how do you get kids. It's almost like, going from primary school to high school, or middle school to high school. It's kind of, the transition. And in our day, you used to just leave in year whatever and go to the next school. Whereas now they do this thing where they kind of integrate kids, they take them for days and they do all that stuff. Why don't we do that? Why is there no kind of like integration into an academy where, and rugby, we tried to do it and we had some success with it, where we work with a lot of the private schools. Right. So you have the kids working at private schools, and some of the players would go out and coach in private schools, and they have really good rugby teams there, and they have great facilities and setups. And then the players would then go and play for the professional academy teams at the weekend and stuff like that. But it's like kind of an integrated approach. What we always have is we have this thing of, there's a mass of footballers out here and great coaches, and then you've got the academies, and it's kind of like the holy grail. And once you go through that door, that's it. You don't see those, and you don't see that side of it. And I think there needs to be more, especially in this current economic climate, where I think a lot of clubs are going to be in a lot of financial trouble going forward. That, if they can kind of spread their nets further and link up with people like yourselves, and because there'll be players that you've probably got in your set up right now that you're thinking, this could be the next so and so, or this is a good player, or this person can do that. So you're there, but maybe it's not the right time for them to step up to the academy. Whereas naturally, just the way that we all are, they will want to go to that academy because then they feel like they're in that place and they've made that step. Yeah. But you'll also probably sit there and go, well, no, I want to keep hold of you for a bit longer because I know you've got some years to develop. And it's kind of that tricky transition. And I think there needs to be a better model. Don't ask me what it is exactly, but I think, there's enough decent people out there that could develop something that is better.
Yeah, agreed. I've got two more questions for you, Glenn, but I think you've answered the next one.
That's right.
My question was going to be, having worked in elite level sport and worked with good youth players as well in a variety of sports, what do you think separates them, the children that go on to make it, to the ones that don't? But you use that word attitude, and I'm going to assume that's at the top of the list.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it's working in some of the academies, some of the things. I remember one of the lads got called up into the first team, and we basically just pulled him to one side. And Michael Johnson, who's now I've just probably given away the academy now, but Michael Johnson is the England under-21s coach, who is unbelievable, amazing coach, and I would work for him in a drop of a hat at any point. Probably one of the only people I would, but he gets it, he understands it, he's phenomenal. Even when we were in the academy, he was doing the jump height test and beating all the first team players. I mean, he's a good character. And, one of the lads got into the team and he just pulled him to one side and he went, right, do you want to know the first thing you do when you get on that bus? And this player went, no, what gaffer? And he was like, you go to the management and you ask everybody if they want a cup of tea. And he went, what? He went, just go and sit. You've got to show that you're a team player. You've got to have a professional attitude. And the gaffer doesn't just look at your football. Mm-hmm. And if you think that is the case, and it's just about it's attitude that, are they going to do this? If you're an absolute world-class talent, you can do whatever you want sometimes, but not everybody can be a world-class talent. And so, a lot of the good athletes out there, you need to show yourself to be a very well-rounded person, human being, have the right attitude. Football is a team game. However, you are an individual commodity, if that makes sense. Yeah. And you can but when you're in a team, you need to be a team player. And, I think, teams win championships, not players. And I think Leicester have proved that. I mean, phenomenal. And when you look at things like, I mean, again, you can tell I've been watching a bit of Netflix in lockdown, but if you've seen the Denmark film on there.
No. From the Euros, was that?
Yeah, when they won the Euros. Do you remember them with Picnic and all that lot? I mean, if you watch that was a team, it wasn't a team effort to start with, and they got rid of the biggest pain in the backside player who was world class. Yeah. And then they went on and won something. I mean, it's, attitude and, kind of togetherness and team effort and all that stuff is probably one of the single most defining factors of champions. And I think, we are talking about a team sport. And so I think if you can come to something with a positive attitude when you're in a team or your own kind of like, personal development and your own personal wants, because as I said before, you can't just turn up and be world class. You've got to practice. You've got to do stuff. You might get to world class and then think you don't need to do any more. And I've definitely heard conversations between world class players that have said, well, why do I need to do that? I'm so-and-so. And that to me literally just chips away at me, because as an ex-failed athlete that didn't quite get to the Olympics or even, develop into another sport, I just think to myself, you really don't know how short your career is.
Yeah.
Yes, you might win millions, but but get paid millions or whatever. But the one thing that you will think about when you're sat in your, multi-million-pound villa in Malaga or wherever you might be, is I really miss playing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Is the money is the money. The money's a byproduct of you being good at something. And when you want to be good at something, I always believe you need to be the best that you possibly can be, because you only get that chance once. And like I said, I've got the second best job in the world. I'm a coach. I'd much rather be an athlete or a player.
Yeah.
So, in hindsight, and, I sound like my old man now. It's like, you've got one life, live it, and all this sort of stuff. But fundamentally, if you want to be good at something, you have to commit to it. And attitude is everything. Skill will only get you 50% of the way.
Well, look at Ronaldo and Messi. I mean, the amount of quotes you hear from other players talking about Ronaldo, how he's in before them at training, he's there afterwards. I heard one the other day. I don't know how true it is, but his cousin, I think, lived with him in Manchester for a period of time. When they won the 2008 Champions League against Chelsea, he came home. Or it was a champion. I think it was a home Champions League game. He came home and he went out and did some recovery work. He ended up going somewhere to do some recovery work. There's stories of him going back on the plane to Madrid from Champions League games and going into the ice baths and things like that, where other players just going home to bed. And that's one of the two best players that have ever played the game. And if it's all right for him, then I think it needs to be all right for everybody else as well, especially if you're not world class. That's the other thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, it tends to be only the world class players that you get to hear those stories. But if you've been a professional, then that's the holy grail, isn't it? Not, like I said, not everybody can be world class, and if you can make a living from it and set your family up for life as well, and all that sort of stuff, then do you know what? That's you've achieved everything you could achieve. Not everybody can be Messi. Not everybody can be Ronaldo or Beckham or whatever. But Beckham used to practice his free kicks. Johnny Wilkinson used to practice his kicking. There's a theme.
Yeah, 100%.
Practice. So, and that is a personal drive. And I think sometimes you can help to encourage that as coaches, but that has to come from within, from the player. And, if you really want it, then go and get it, because it's possible.
Last question for you, Glenn, because I appreciate your time today. Thanks for giving us so much time.
My pleasure.
You've got a 4-year-old who you are trying your best not to not to push, as hard as that is for us coaches.
Doesn't sound like it. Doesn't it?
Would you encourage your son to pursue a career in pro sport, given what what you've experienced yourself as an athlete, but also as a coach now?
Yeah, and I hope my in-laws don't listen to this, but 100% yes. Even because sport has made me who I am. Don't get me wrong, I'm quite academic. I've got a master's degree in strength and conditioning and a degree. I've also got a degree in marketing and business and finance. Yep. But sport made me who I am. Academics, I'm going to be really controversial now. You can do that at any point. I mean, most people get to the age of 35, 40 and have a bit of a crisis and think, have I picked the right career?
Mm.
You know, so unless you are going to be a world-class doctor, or you know, you're going to be a lawyer or something, or an architect that takes time to train, I got to university on my athletics. But I also got picked up in the first week there because I used to play a very, very good standard of football. And so, you know, kind of sports always stuck with me. And sport has taught me such good lessons all the way through life, how to, you know, accept defeat, how to deal with, you know, failure and all those sorts of things. And, you know, I had my career taken away from me through some, you know, don't mind telling you, but it was, I kicked somebody playing football, and I shouldn't have been playing football. And I didn't kick them as in kick them. I went to tackle them, but, you know, I was in one of those tackles that's probably 20-80 against.
Yeah.
And just one small little thing, and that's how quickly things can turn. So I'm not saying it should all be sport, but academic you should always do that, and that teaches you good discipline. But 100%, I will encourage my son at the right time to follow the sport that he chooses if he wants to. And that's the difference is, you know, I hope he will be athletic, he will be good at something. Genetically, because again, our company, we can genetically test kids. So we work with DNA Fit, so I was their chief educator. Yeah. And so DNA Fit's the only company that will let us genetically test kids, because we do it the right way. And we, you know, it's things like, am I allergic to lactose or this or that? And I think those things, although it's controversial, I think that doesn't hurt somebody growing up, because if you know that you shouldn't be having something because that's genetically what you're predisposed to, what we don't, then it's a good thing to know that.
Yeah.
What we don't do is we don't do talent ID from it, which is where it's caused problems in the past. Yeah. Because, as I said to you, 50%, well, in genetics, we say 50% genotype, which is your genetics, 50% phenotype, which is your environment. That includes you, that includes me, that includes parents and stuff. So it's not the be all and end all, but it can show you some stuff. Have I genetically tested my kid? No. But I do know what my genes are. I do know what my wife's genes are. At some point I will do, but purely because I want to do the right thing by him, to give him every opportunity. And I think, you know, as a closing point, that's kind of where I sit as a coach and as a parent, is if you can provide every opportunity, it's up to your child to take those decisions. It's not up to you to force them. However, actively encouraging things is different than forcing them. And I think, you know, when you look at some of the best people out there in the world that have been at the top of their games, whether it's, you know, Michael Jackson in music or whatever, that's maybe in the extreme, but there has to be some form of drive from parents to actively encourage, because that's what we're there to do. We're there to guide. We're not there to enforce or to, you know, to castrate them when they do something wrong or anything like that. But I think sport teaches you more than just sport.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the years, like I said, you know, during lockdown, we've had to close down 2 of our training facilities, which was a really hard decision to make. But the way I used it, and to use analogy, a sporting analogy, was, you know, I used a rugby one, unfortunately, but, you know, when I was talking to my staff, I said, look, this is like, we're in the cup final. Okay, we're in the cup final, and we've just lost 5 of our players because we're getting hammered by about a 10-point margin. So we've got an opportunity here. Do we just throw the game, because next week we've got 1 game left to win the league, or do we battle on and try and win this game that there's probably a very good chance we're going to lose it? And that's the analogy that I use with all of my staff members. And I went, we are basically going to throw the cup game because we want to win the league, because winning the league is more important than the cup. And so we had to close 2 facilities, but we're still alive as a business. And that is all due to me being able to, every decision I make is based on sports analogies, because sport and business are basically the same thing. You win, you lose. Hopefully you lose too many times in business, but you have to keep going. You have to, you know, it's only over when it's over. And I think that's what sport teaches you. And sport is over before life is over. So it's a small part of your life. Even if you become a world-class player, which is a fortunate thing, you know, you could be done by the time you're 30.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very, very short time. So, you know, kids these days are going to live up into their late, you know, sort of 80s, 90s and hundreds and above, potentially. So 30% of that is a very, very small time. But all the lessons that you learn from sport, I think, will give you every foundation possible going forward. Just make sure that it's fun. Make sure you put them in good environments. Make sure it's always progressive. But I think, absolutely. I don't want to live my failed sporting career through my son. But if he just happens to be good at something and he actively wants to pursue it, I will do everything in my power to support him, and he can be as good as he wants to be. But that's up to him.
Brilliant. Resilience is the word from that, isn't it, Glenn? Really, I think that's one of the, certainly for I was nowhere near world class, nowhere near, probably city class or whatever. But I worked hard. Football taught me to work hard because my friends were all good at football. I didn't want to be that one getting picked last in the playground, so I just outworked people and got to the point where did all right. Played at a fairly high standard, but the stuff that it's helped around that, making friends, going into business and being able to take the downs that happen as well as the ups and stay humble throughout it all. I think these things I can link back to playing sport, managing, leading as a captain. It's all the same stuff. So, Glenn, thank you so much for that. I hope as many parents as possible listen to this, and kids, because there's a lot of things in there that some great takeaways. And one thing I wanted to finish off with is just, guys that are watching on YouTube, this is Glenn's book here. He didn't know I was going to do this, by the way, but I bought this book when you and I were when you were helping me with my diploma, and there's so many activities, exercises in there that even if you're not a coach, if you're a parent that's thinking, I wouldn't mind just learning a little bit more about the area, and then set up some stuff in the garden and things like that, but make it fun. This is a great book. It's Plyometrics for Speed and Power by Glen Thurgood. So, guys, I'd recommend getting that if you want to read a little bit more about the subject without having to, without it being an encyclopedia. It's just nice and concise. Loads of different stuff in there. Glenn, where else could people find you and find out more information about what you do?
Well, our business is called The Training Shed. And at the moment we are, we've restructured. So we've come out the other side of it. Which is good. We've managed to, we've managed to keep hold of 90% of our staff. So we have kind of gone to that online side of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we actually now are available to everybody and anybody. And we like I said, we do have sports performance stuff that we do. So we do online coaching, online training programs, and all that sort of stuff. We are available. Just go to trainingshed.com. One of the things that we are doing right now is, when I talked about that triangle of performance sits at the top of that triangle, and at the very, very bottom we have this thing called the well-being score, which is a 20-point test that you can do online. And go to trainingshed.com homepage, scroll down, and you go onto it, and it's for 14 years old and above. We are going to bring out a younger one later in the year, but what it does is it assesses your well-being, your health and well-being. So ideally, if you think of the triangle, you want a solid foundation at the bottom, so you should be scoring somewhere between 19 and 20 out of 20. Later on in the year, we're going to bring out a health score and then a fitness score. That little base, or the large base of that program, is going to be a score out of 100. It's something that I've been banging on about for years of what we need to do, because that tiny little performance bit at the top is football, is rugby, is judo, is whatever else sport you want to say. So our theory, and what we've seen over the years through academies and everything, is that this big base at the bottom is never normally as good as it could be. And so what we're doing is we're releasing this thing. So by the end of the year, we'll be able to turn around to you and say, what's your shed? We call it shed score. What's your shed score? And if you tell me that it's 90, then I'll be like, fantastic. Your performance in your sport is going to be better. Right. But if you turn around and say it's 35, I'm going to say, right, well, instead of concentrating on becoming a footballer, let's concentrate on athletically being an athlete first. And it starts with basic things like drinking water, nutritional things, but not going into carbohydrates and protein and all this sort of stuff, because again, we overcomplicate stuff. So keep it simple, get a really good base athletic kind of foundation, and that little triangle at the top, the performance one, that we all sit in at some point, whether we go for a run at the weekend, we play under 16 football or whatever it is, that big bit plays a huge part on that small bit at the top. I'd love to come back on and talk to you about it each time we release a little bit. But, it's free to do. You can go on there and do it. But if you need anything from us, I'd be happy to help. And obviously, with yourself. I'll always help you. And once we are allowed to leave the Shire, as we say, I'd love to come up and just come and see one of your sessions in play anyway.
Yeah, and I just likewise, I want to get down to the training shed at some point to one of your venues once everything's back to normal, because I'm just going down a rabbit hole with this stuff. The more I read and the more I do it with the kids, I'm just convinced by it all, and I'm on a mission now to bring it worldwide so parents know it's the way forward. But it'd be great to keep in touch, Glenn, on that side. And again, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Take care.